G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Trewin. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it. Welcome everyone. Today I'm interviewing Scott Maynard from Excite Media based in beautiful Brisbane, Australia. Thanks for your time today, Scott.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Let's start with how we know each other. Ashley from Boost Media, she sent us quite a few great guests in the past, and a few months ago she reached out and thought you'd be another great one for us.
Yeah, so we've been working with them. I think I can confess that as a marketing agency, we are probably not as onto our own marketing as we should be. We have some younger members of the team who are really pushing us to do a few more of these things. So yeah, so here we are. So somehow it's happened.
Tell our audience a bit about your business, what it does and how it makes money.
So we're a marketing agency primarily for service-based businesses. So that's digital marketing, SEO, Google Ads, Facebook ads. Web design is actually a big part of what we do, and actually that's where we started web development and web design many years ago.
But as in, do you help specific industries? You mentioned services or any?
Yeah, we've definitely fine-tuned that over the years. Service-based businesses is our sweet spot. So anything that's lead generation. So it might be usually high ticket sort of stuff. So it might be kitchen renovation company who needs lead for kitchens, anything in construction, that sort of stuff. So.
Yep, great. And geographically, do you just work in Australia or you got clients elsewhere?
Yeah, primarily Brisbane, Australia. Definitely in the early days it was almost 100% Brisbane, but obviously these days it's a lot easier to do business all around Australia. But Australia is probably, there's enough businesses in Australia for us to work with that we don't usually need to go further afield.
Yep, 2.1 million of them I looked up the other month. Yeah.
That's good information, actually. I didn't know that.
How did you start out?
Well, myself and my business partner, my now business partner, have been friends for years, and we've just always dabbled in things like this business. As a kid, I think my first business was called the Handy Household Helpers. So that was just door knocking around the neighborhoods, doing yard cleanups, that sort of thing.
What age was that?
Oh, probably like 11 or 12,
Yeah.
something like that. We were wearing our dad's suits, which I think kind of just helped the pity factor.
I hope you still got photos of that. I was 11 when I started my lawn mowing business in the country town.
Yeah, I do have a photo of us in our dad's suits, and that's actually not the only time that we've had to bring out the dad's suits throughout the business journey. So one of them was actually at Cricket Victoria doing a big presentation. I was wearing my dad's suit, felt very out of place. But yeah, rewind back there. So still, as a kid, did all those sort of little businesses. My business partner, Nathaniel, and I were also into music. So a lot of music projects throughout high school, bands, all that sort of stuff, which we kind of treated as a business as well.
I too was in a band when I had hair. And I couldn't believe people would pay us to play music in pubs. It was amazing.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good feeling, isn't it? You can say you're a professional muso if you've been paid. So I often bring that out to my kids.
Yeah.
Then in uni, I studied electrical engineering and software, that sort of stuff. And we had a little tuition agency at that time as well. So basically matchmaking high school kids who needed a tutor with university students who could tutor them. So, and that was in the days where really our advertising was just basically putting an ad in the paper. Get inquiries. I remember we'd rigged up a modem with a phone answering software so people could press 1 to book a tutor, all that sort of stuff. So that was pretty cool.
Sorry, on that, because you're in Brisbane as well, I don't know if you're around the same age. I'll have to look him up. But do you know Yarrow Starrick?
Who, sorry?
Yarrow Starrick.
No,
I had him on the podcast last year, but I followed him 10 or 12 years ago on his podcast. He's great, but he's also from Brisbane. I just thought he was also a bit of a nerd, worked in a IT sport department, actually, I think for the university. But no, sorry, keep going.
Yeah. So, and with that one, I was also, looking back, I was actually spamming people because I'd made a little program that would email all the university students based on their student number, basically asking them to be a tutor. So it was a bit of a spam bot before it was really a thing. So I kind of give myself a rap on the knuckles for that now. But hopefully I didn't contribute to all the spam problem of the world. But so we did that, and then When we graduated uni, Nathaniel and I both graduated around the same time. It was kind of just a moment where we were like, okay, so do we get real jobs now, or do we just give this a crack? And yeah, we just decided to give business a crack, really. So that was back in end of 2003.
That's when you started the business?
Yeah, late 2003. It's under a different name then. It was more web development focused, but kind of everything spawned from there for us.
Yeah. And how old were you then? That was 20, nearly 22 years ago now.
So I would have been 21 in 2003. So yeah, Nathaniel the same. So we kind of just Nathaniel's more of a sales and marketing focus where I just got a technical background. So we kind of combined those and he went out and did a lot of the wheeling and dealing, and I would sit there just coding things up, often kind of outside our comfort zone of what we used to, but we kind of just put our hands up for jobs and worked it out later.
Good time to start 2003 because that's 2 years after the dot com crash. So the washout of that would have subsided, and also 5 years before the GFC. So it was just the two of you that started together.
Yeah, it was, and I actually often think about that I try to attribute how much of our business success has been, um, through our good running of a business versus just being at the right place at the right time. So, and I think everyone, there's a component of that. So it's definitely a good industry for us to fall into. I don't think it wasn't like it was part of a business plan where we said, look, this dot-com boom's just thing and there's opportunity here. It was more, this is just the skills we have, and this is a need in the marketplace, and we kind of fell into it. And just grew from there.
That's great. So you've never had a real job. You just straight out of uni, started your own business.
Yeah, I worked at Sizzler for a while, which actually I often say that if the business ends or whatever, I would love to go back and work at somewhere like Sizzler because I that was just an amazing job for me. I'm very, very into food, and I'm just devastated that it's no longer a thing. So
We've got one here down in Hobart.
actually,
Yeah.
still running?
Yep.
Okay, well, I will definitely be down there. So
Good. Do you have some key numbers you can share to illustrate the growth of the business over the last 22 years?
um, yeah, so yeah, I knew you'd be asking this, so I did have to actually dig up some information. I found it really interesting to look at. I haven't got any information sort of to 2003 to 2007, but it would have been a couple hundred K, something like that in terms of revenue. We did have some employees, um, probably had about 3 employees during that time. But then, so 2008, I'm just looking at, we had about 200K revenue with a loss of 25K. 2009, 373K, but still a loss of 12K. Then you can see it starts to get up to 500K in 2011, 800K 2013. Then it starts to accelerate. We're up to 1.8 million in 2016, 2.8 million in 2017, 3.7 million in 2018. Then hovered around that mark until 2022 when we were 4.7 million revenue. And then the latest financial year is around 5.6 million. So
That's great. I mean, I know that's steady growth over 25 years, but one, you're still here. There's something like only 4% of businesses ever crack the $1 million in sales mark. So that's phenomenal.
mm,
You're in the top 4%. And obviously, as you know, 80% of businesses go under in the first 5 years, and the next 5 years, another 80% go under. So that's
yeah.
well done. That's really good growth.
Yeah, thank you. And I think the big challenge getting over that million, people do talk about that $1 million hump. It really changes the business in terms of okay, you've got a certain number of people at that point, and you can no longer just say, "Hey, Jim, can you just do that?" And they just know how they're going to do it. You've really got to actually start to scale those processes and put in those people management processes. Recruitment's becoming a thing. HR's becoming a thing. Dealing with people who are not friends and family. Like a lot of our early employees were either friends, family, or someone we knew in our immediate networks. So you're kind of dealing with all sorts of walks of life and trying to find your identity, I suppose, from a cultural point of view as a business and making sure that you are kind of upholding those values as a business.
That's great. And you started yourself and Nathaniel, two full-time equivalents. How many team members are you up to now?
I around 40. Obviously, not everyone's full time, so I'd say so full time equivalent, maybe 33, 34, I'd say. But yeah, around 40 in terms of our total number of people, plus some contractors as well.
That's great. When was the moment you felt like you had succeeded?
Um, Yeah, it is a hard one. It's never really feels like there's a finish line that you're aiming for, and I guess when is the chance that you actually reflect on these things? I think it's definitely surreal when you start to hear about your business um, from people you don't expect to in other contexts. So someone talking about your business, going on a camping and trip and someone saying, "Oh, I got my website done by Excite Media," and you go, "Oh, actually, I didn't know that." It's something that's just happened organically, or maybe when people are applying for jobs and they actually talk about the reputation of the business, and it's just funny when that business has a life of its own beyond yourself. And I think that is something that I've found quite surreal when those sorts of things happen. Um, I think the other sorts of things that I guess, felt proud of is just when we've been able to help someone on our team with something, whether it's immigrating to Australia or um, just facilitating some flexibility so they could go work abroad, that sort of thing. And the other one would be, I think, from a financial point of view, if you ever approach someone wanting to buy the business, that's always good. And when there's actually a value on the table, you can actually feel a bit of pride there that you've created something.
And Excite Media, I do recall in the early 2000s, I assume it's dead now, but there was a search engine or website listing called Excite, wasn't it? Do you
So
remember?
yeah, there was. That's a while ago now. So fortunately, we haven't had to defend any trademark claims or anything like that, as that seems to have gone by the wayside.
What does success look like to you?
Um, so as a business, I think, well, there are the three pillars that we measure our business on. One is the team happiness, and we measure that. The other is client happiness, which we measure as well, and the other is financial sustainability. So we kind of find that those three things really work hand in hand. If you have a happy team, they're going to deliver a good service to your clients, which in turn is going to create a financially sustainable business for you. Um, as a business owner, I feel like success, the word that comes to mind, Nathaniel and I talk a bit about this because we're always talking about what we want to do next with the business and all sorts of decisions that we need to make. It often comes down to the word freedom. So I think for me, our business is successful if, from a personal point of view, I feel like I have the freedom. So whether it's to choose what work I want to do, it doesn't mean I'm not working at all, but I'm working on the things I really want to do, and when I want to do it. And it's also if the business is contributing to my personal life, to enhancing that rather than detracting from it. So, and I can't say that's always been the case in the business. There's definitely been times when it hasn't felt that way. There's definitely been the weight of the business on me and it has affected personal areas of life. But when we're making decisions going forward, it's trying to think like what's going to give us the most freedom to do those things.
We might touch on, before we hit record, we talking about Net Promoter Score, NPS. I was really impressed that you used both the customer facing one and ENPS, which is Employee Net Promoter Score, which I also recommend people use. I'll include a link in the show notes for a blog post I wrote on how NPS works. And there's a 10-minute podcast where I explain it. One question: how likely are you to recommend us to a friend or a colleague between 0 and 10? Not 1 and 10, and it's not, an average of 9.5 out of 10. It's a positive or a negative score. So if you tell the audience both your numbers, and I'll explain to the audience whether they're good or not.
Yeah. So NPS, so that's customer facing. We are at plus 67.
Shit, that's good. Mm.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, we work very hard on it. And it is a key metric for all our team that they're aware that that's what we're measuring. And I think we have had other metrics in the past that we've had in place, but I feel like NPS is the one that really drives behavior because you know that the customer is going to be asked a very simple question like that, and it's just easy to visualize as someone working at Excite Media, how can I make this customer happy and respond positively to that question. So all our team are always going above and beyond for clients, things like that. Um, in terms of employee net promoter score, we are plus 72. And we use a piece of software called Office Vibe to measure that one.
Yeah, that's also an excellent score for gauging your employee loyalty. The external one, the NPS for customers, is customer loyalty, obviously, but both those numbers are terrific. So well done to you, Nathaniel, and the team. That's great.
Yeah, thank you. And I definitely would recommend that software, Office Vibe, or any of the similar. There are a few different ones out there, but we get so much valuable feedback. It's not just the NPS or EMPS rating that we get from that. It asks a whole host of questions like, um, you know, do you feel like you have the flexibility you need at work? Do you feel safe at work? Are you happy with your pay? All sorts of things like that. And we get really, really valuable feedback. Sometimes it's hard to not take things personally, but you just got to remember you're literally asking this question of people and you want them to be honest. I would rather they're giving me honest feedback on the business rather than sugarcoating it. So,
Yep. And you run that quarterly?
so that piece of software asks them a question weekly. So there'll be various different topics. I won't ask everything weekly. There's about, I think, 8 different categories of questions. So just each week they'll get a little survey in the inbox, fill out a few questions, and then also answer the Net Promoter Score thing. I think that is quarterly. For customers, we choose certain points to ask it. So onboarding is a big focus of us. We want to make sure clients have a really good experience with onboarding. So after 21 days, we'll ask the question. So how did you feel about this experience, this onboarding experience? If it's a recurring customer, so we're doing ongoing SEO or other digital marketing, we'll ask, say, 2 monthly cadences. And any other milestones, like if we just launched a website. It can be difficult to get responses, so you can't expect every customer to give a response, and we don't harass people for it. We might ask once or twice, but then we sort of drop it after that. You don't want asking the question to actually be the thing that makes them unhappy with Excite Media. And also the other thing that I find is important with NPS is the medium that you ask the question, whether it's a phone call, SMS, email. We've sort of settled on SMS as a good balance. I think phone call for me, they might be
Biased.
bias. There's a bit of social anxiety around giving a bad score to someone who's on the phone to you. So I feel like text promotes them just giving a quick answer, but also an accurate answer.
Yep, I agree. Perfect question for you. Number one thing you'd recommend to marketing a fast-growing business? Not that you're doing enough for your own business.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I think a lot of our success over the years has not become because we're marketing people. Like, I'm actually not a marketing person. I'm more of a business person, same as Nathaniel. We are in a marketing industry. We do help clients with marketing, but that's not where our passion lies. Our passion is really around business itself. So I think working on your product and just delivering a good product or service to the marketplace is marketing. So product design is actually marketing. So there's all that. But in terms of promoting it and like amplifying the message out there, I feel like you've got to do what is natural to you because there's so many channels these days. You could be on LinkedIn, you could be doing email marketing, you could be focused on SEO, all podcasts, all those sorts of things. But the best marketing, it's similar to a diet. I think the best marketing is the one that you're going to consistently stick to because it's in your comfort zone. So if you're not the sort of person who wants to post organic content on LinkedIn and you just know in your heart you're not going to do that, then that's probably not the channel for you. I find that once you get to a bigger sort of organization, you can delegate some of that. So there might be someone within the organization who really loves LinkedIn or really loves email or loves getting on podcasts, that sort of thing. And they can maybe perform that role. But I really do think you got to be honest with yourself about what you're going to stick to and kind of just double down on that.
How did you fund the business?
So yeah, pretty much just all organic growth. Nathaniel and I were in the position when we started that we'd literally just left uni. We didn't have a whole lot of expenses or family commitments. We could live on a shoestring. So my now wife, who was girlfriend at the time, she had a job, which was good. She was a nurse. So I was pretty much mooching off her for, I'd say, 4 years until we actually started contributing to the family. Nathaniel would have been the same. So it was really just about reinvesting all our time into the business. We did actually have a period where we wanted to launch a SaaS product. So it was an email marketing newsletter product, and we did get an investor for that. But we weren't successful with actually launching that. We quickly just fell back to what we knew, which was agency. But other than that, yeah, it's all just been self-funded growth and kind of we got a pretty conservative outlook. We're not really into borrowing money for business. So it's really all about organic growth for us.
So no other investors apart from that investor for the SaaS product?
No, that's right. Yep.
If you were to start up today with plenty of funding, would you go into your industry?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I don't think I'd exclude the industry as a whole. I think the size of business we have now, it's very hard for us to change who we are in broad strokes right now. So I do things differently. Um, so I think I'd be very, very thoughtful about what I sell and who I sell it to. So really looking for an audience that A, has the money to spend on your product, and B, that's someone you can deliver value to. So whatever your skill set is, or whatever value you can bring. I think I'm not sure, are you familiar with Alex Hormozi? Really, really good book, $100 million offers.
Offers and Leads, great book. But his first book as well, Gym Launch Secrets, is also, even if you don't own a gym, I think there's a lot of great lessons in there as well.
Yeah, so I think he's got one, I'm not sure if you've seen it, where he talks about if a if you if a genie could come and grant you one competitive advantage, say you've got a hot dog business and you could get one wish granted by a genie, what would it be? So would it be that you could cook it quicker? Would it be that it tastes better? Would it be that it's cheaper to make? He says none of that. He says the thing that he would wish for would be to be on a corner where there's a starving crowd.
Yeah.
So all about choosing the audience, I think. So I wouldn't shy away from our industry. I'd just be a bit more selective about the audience that we serve. And that is actually something that we're ongoing. We are always fine tuning that and looking at who we serve and how we can add more value to it. And I think the other thing we'd look for is, and we are always talking about as well, is how to add a twist to your offering. So aside from just converting time to money and charging for the same things everyone else is, what twist can you add to that? So whether that's layering on a piece of technology that adds value in itself rather than just selling people hours. Because I mean, as everyone listening knows who runs business, there's a lot of stuff being thrown at you all the time. There's compliance changes, there's rising labor costs, and it is hard to keep up with that. That's where if you can find that twist that adds value in of itself, I think that helps differentiate you in the marketplace.
Can you outline the most stressful point in your small business growth journey so our audience can learn from it?
I think there's been times where it's felt out of control, and that's in high growth periods. Probably the most stressful thing I've ever had to do is letting people go. That that's nights of sleepless nights just thinking about that. We've become, fortunately, it's not the sort of thing we have to do every day, but when you know it needs to happen, you just have to do it. You do it with kindness, but it doesn't get any easier, to be honest. So I'd say that's the most stressful. I think anything financial for us, that is stressful because you do feel that the pressure of you've got 40 people that you're kind of responsible for to some extent. So anything where you feel out of control financially, and there definitely has been times. Can't remember the year. I think 2017 we had a small round of redundancies, which just looking back, I just think we didn't know our numbers well enough as well as we thought we did. We hadn't had now we focus a lot on recurring revenue. So I think you've really got to be sure that either you've got recurring revenue, or if it's not the sort of business that you can have that you have a really solid marketing funnel that you can trust. It's not just hiring people to fulfill orders that might dry up the next month sort of thing. So knowing your numbers, I think, is really important to be able to be ahead of that sort of financial pressure when it comes.
Yep, I totally agree. My second middle name is Know Your Numbers, that's for sure.
Yep.
What area in business do you feel you've had to work on the most to add the greatest value?
I think scaling has been the hardest thing for us. Going from, well, we were always a really close-knit small team, and we were a small team for a long time. So maybe between, 3 and 10 people. But I think, as I said before, when you get over that $1 million revenue, it is really hard to scale some of those processes. You really have to define those processes, whereas you just used to trust the 6 or 7 people just knew what they were doing and they just do it their way and it would just work, and you just talk over your shoulder to them. It is really challenging to scale that up into a larger organization. Even just interpersonal things can come up that just you wouldn't have predicted. Trying to get consistent with your processes. So I think that's something even now that we're still always trying to refine.
What have you enjoyed the least about managing fast growth?
I think, as I said before, being out of control. And that's happened a few times where sometimes it's feel like it's in a good way. We're literally selling too much stuff. We don't have the people to fulfill it. So you're going on a hiring spree. But there is that thing in the back of your mind, feeling like I am actually not in control of this right now. So I think those moments have been the least favorite, but man, we've learned so much over having to deal with, like, having to mop up the the result of that. And yeah, as I said, there had been a small round of redundant, actually twice in the business. We've had two rounds of redundancies. They weren't massive, but it was a bit of a reality check. Well, hold on, we didn't actually have control of this like we thought we did. And yeah, really sad to see some good people go. But on the other side of that, even though you do have that sinking feeling when you're having to tell someone that you can't provide the job for them anymore, almost I think every single one of those people has gone on to do something possibly even bigger and better. So I guess it's also about having faith in them. They're not completely reliant on us as a business. They have skills to offer to the world as well, and every single case they've shown that, and they've gone on to do bigger and better things. And in almost all cases, I think we're still on great terms and keep up to date and all that sort of stuff. So.
What do you love most about growing a small business?
I think the creativity for myself and Nathaniel, particularly, as I said before, we're not so much marketing people as business people. We've always been schemers, just scheming the next business idea. Fortunately, we've had I don't know how, to be honest, that we've managed to stay focused on this business for close to 20 years. But somehow we've done it because we do want, our ideas are always going off, but we've managed to stay consistent with it. I would also make a special mention to our GM Chris, who's actually a good mate as well, who came on board very early on, and I think like we really complement each other well, the three of us. Chris is very, very good operationally, and I think he has helped keep that consistency going operationally, while Nathaniel and I get a bit carried away with ideas. He kind of brings us back down to earth, but we also stretch him as well. So I think that's actually really important, is if you can find that, whether it's a business partner or with early employees in your business, those people who really complement you well. And I think we all need tempering. Like, we all have biases that needs tempering. As long as you got that mutual respect, then I think it works really well.
What has been the biggest mindset shift for you in your small business growth journey?
I think for me, long-term thinking. My background is engineering, so very black and white sort of thinker. Sometimes it's always about what ROI am I getting out of this particular activity. And I was very much like that early in business. So, for example, if there's a sponsorship opportunity for our business to sponsor some local team or something like that, it'd be very hard for me to get out of the mindset of, well, it costs this. What are the chances of me getting that? Well, no, therefore I won't do it. Sometimes you just got to have faith in the intangible, and it's just thinking long term. Building a brand is not, you can't always attribute the ROI of every single activity. Sometimes you just got to get out there and do things. So having that long term mindset, I think, has been the biggest mindset shift. And that's not something that happened overnight. That was something over many, many years, just learning to think long term. And I think as you grow the business, you start to get more of the luxury of being able to think long term once you build your reserves, that sort of thing. One example I can think of something I didn't think would have any ROI at all, but we did it anyway because it was fun, was in 2010, we broke a world record for darts.
Oh yeah.
So it was called the dart. Yeah, it was we had to play the longest darts marathons, 32 hours, something like that. And we ran it as a charity event. It was called the Darts Charity Challenge. And that was a massive job in terms of organizing all that, getting all the documentation to Guinness World Records, running it. We had to have independent witnesses the whole time. We had to have, believe it or not, we had to have nurses and doctors on site in case something happened during the marathon. So it's a really, really big effort. And we happened to get some press out of that, just like in the local community newspaper. From that, we actually got, I think, about $300,000 worth of business from someone who saw us in that. They happened to be a marketing consultant who had about 20 different clients they introduced us to, which then spawned a bunch of other clients. And we looked back at it and we said, geez, that was actually about 300K return on that, which we didn't expect. But I think if you just open yourself to those opportunities, you just never know what's going to come out of it. You just, for me anyway, it was breaking out of that short-term transactional thinking, and it's more about long-term, intangible brand building, that sort of stuff. So for me, that's been the biggest mindset shift.
The number one habit you think a small business owner needs to develop and maintain?
I think it's your middle name. Know your numbers. Um, and I know everyone's not a numbers person, but you need to cover that somehow. You can't just hope. So whether it's a really good accountant, whether it's hiring someone in the business who can monitor those things. For me, I do it myself. I wasn't always doing it, but in the last probably 5 to 6, 7 years, that's been my primary role is managing the numbers. So I just don't think you can make good decisions unless you know the numbers. Otherwise, you're just guessing.
Jump over to growasmallbusiness.com and leave your details to get a short 2-minute email I send on Fridays to help small business owners like you become better leaders. I include some reading or professional development resources I've discovered in the last week. Can you talk to how you've added people to the team, some wins, mistakes, and advice for those listening?
Yeah, so I think I mentioned before, a lot of our early team were friends and family. Actually had a lot of pushback from that, from my friends and family for hiring friends and family, because a lot of people say, look, that is a recipe for disaster. For us, it's worked well. Look, I don't know if it's as a general rule, like if it works well for others, but for us in the early stages at least, it really did work well for us. Obviously, can be a lot tougher if it's not working out. So you just got to be really upfront and honest. Then beyond that, as we had to grow beyond that immediate network, I feel like if you're constantly recruiting, you should really always have lines out there in the marketplace, or building a brand from a employee point of view, so that when you have a need, you're not starting from scratch each time. So we try to do that, have a bit of a passive recruitment channel. We do accept applications for every role at any time. We screen candidates, we get back to them. We make sure that we're sort of not ghosting people in that process. So we are just building our network. We will use recruiters. I think recruiters have a greater reach than we do as a business. So I think there's a place for recruiters. I was a bit slow to get on the bandwagon with recruiters because the fees are quite a lot you pay for a recruiter, but they do have access to people that that you may otherwise not have had. And I think hiring the right person is way more important than saving some money on a fee or something like that. So yeah, we just all and everything. So basically building the network, using recruiters, and trying to really refine our recruitment and selection process. And then I guess acknowledging that you're not always going to get it right in recruitment. You can have a gut feel. And something that we've had to get better at is, if it's not working out, having the guts to actually to say that early on in the relationship for everyone's sake. It's still not easy, but we have processes in place where we will do a review. We'll be upfront and honest. We'll try to make expectations super clear of new employees coming in, so they always know where they stand.
What are some of the things you recommend to building a sustainable and kick-ass culture to help with the growth?
I think articulating what you stand for as a business. So as founders, so for us, we have core values, which are care, contribution, dependability, and fun. So just being really, really clear on that and accepting that your culture is not going to be for everyone, and that's fine. So we probably fell into the trap early on as we were growing that we kind of wanted to be everything to everyone. So we'd cater for everything. Whereas once we got a bit more definite about what our business means and what it is, then it just became easier to say, look, this just isn't a culture fit, and that's fine. So I think defining your culture. The other one, big one for us, is feedback. So that Office Vibe software that I mentioned before, that one's been awesome for us. So just literally a question each week. We get feedback every week or every day because we got 40 people filling that out weekly. We're always getting feedback. So I think you can know where the pain points are of your team member. It's anonymous as well. They can choose to remain anonymous, so they can just say what they really think, and sometimes they do, and sometimes it can be a bit shocking if you get something that's not as positive it could be, but at least you know about it. So I really think that feedback is super important.
Yeah, totally agree. We highly recommend running a quarterly anonymous team survey as well. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Actually, another thing we've started doing, not only anonymous surveys about the business, about 360 surveys for each team member as well. It's very delicate. You've got to facilitate that. People have to be ready for that, and they can opt into that. But it is really valuable to have your teammates actually give you feedback coming from a good place about how you can improve.
Yep. Tell our audience how you've handled balance.
Um, so as a business, we do a 4-day week. So that is everyone still does 38 hours for full timers, but you can spread that out over 4 days. So for us, we've chosen Wednesday as kind of the optional day. If you want to spread your hours over the other days, you can have Wednesday off. Some people prefer to just work a normal 5-day week, but I'd say most people, like right now is a Wednesday, we're recording this. So most people are probably out there either playing golf or um, doing a hobby, or they might be catching up on some emails as well, but they're not so stressed about it. So as a business, that's what we've been doing. A lot of working from home. We've always, even pre-COVID, have been pretty flexible in that sense. We're obviously even more so now. Um, I think balance in terms of personally, say as an owner of a business, I think, I don't know, you just got to put it in perspective as to what this business is. If you're finding yourself sacrificing more of your personal life than what you want to and what you're willing to, particularly when you have family, kids, all that sort of stuff, it just might indicate that you need to restructure the business because it's not worth the business ruling your life.
Mm.
So that's when Nathaniel and myself do have a lot of conversations about that. If it's feeling out of control, what do we need to change to fix that? Sometimes that might be shrinking a little. Sometimes that might be employing someone to fulfill something that's currently on our plates. But yeah, I think always reflecting on that and making sure that if it is out of control, you can do something about it, and you should. So.
On the 4-day work week you've got, how long ago did you introduce that, and how was it received by the team?
So we introduced that just before COVID, actually. So that would have been early 2020. And then obviously everything changed anyway. Um, I can't actually remember where I heard about it. I think there's a book called The 4-Day Work Week. I might have come across that. We found another company down in Melbourne that were doing something. We actually went down there and visited them and saw what they were doing.
Yeah, I read about that. They're marketing as well, aren't they?
Versa is the company. Yeah, they're marketing down in Melbourne. So
In
yeah, we
Melbourne.
visited.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yep.
check them out. And yeah, I don't know what prompted us to do that. I think for me personally, I've just been big on that, on really, not having people sit at a desk for the sake of just
Mm.
being present. I really have always wanted to do the right thing by our team and kind of treat the team the way that I take a lot of liberties as a business owner. I could be out there doing something recreational on a certain day. Like I don't want to exclude people from doing that as well and having some control over their own lives. So we just tried to put something in place that allows people to do that, have that flexibility. It's really, really worked well, to be honest. As I said, we don't do the premise of the book that I read was actually you do 80% of the hours for 100% of the output. So we haven't gone down that road because I'm just not sure if that's sustainable, to be honest. I feel like, well, that could be possible over a short period of time. I think they're just pushing themselves during the trial period and then it all will just revert to the mean anyway. But the team really, really enjoy the way we've set it up. So, and it is working well for us as a business.
Have you had any feedback, or do you think it's helped with your recruitment having the 4-day work week?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Um, I think it is a major, major factor for recruitment. So I highly encourage everyone to consider it. Obviously, there's some industries where it's not as possible, and we need to be realistic as well. Like our team understand that our clients are not 4 days a week. Our clients are working 5 days a week, and if they need something, they need something. We can't let that impede our ability to deliver the service we need to deliver. So we try our best to arrange our own schedules. So most stuff happens on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, but there's something that needs to happen on a Wednesday. It just needs to happen. And honestly, the team are great with that. It's not like it's become an entitlement. It's people really do value it and they understand that, look, it's the onus is on us, everyone in the business to make it work. And sometimes it just means doing something on a Wednesday when you'd normally rather be playing golf, but you just have to do it. So
How much professional development have you invested in yourself?
quite a lot. informally usually. So a lot of podcasts, a lot of books. At the moment, I don't actually read a whole lot of business. So at the moment, I'm very much I just listen to fiction at the moment because I sometimes just need to switch my brain off. But I've gone through big periods of a lot of professional development. So at the very start, it was physical books. I used to love just going to Dymocks or QBD or whatever and finding a business book and reading it. Obviously, things have changed over the years. We can get audio books I particularly like because I can do it while I'm driving, but podcasts like your podcast, anything that's business related is great. I consumed a lot of Gary V. You familiar with Gary V stuff? He's not for everyone, but for me, I feel like his heart's in a really good place. And I think he understands all that stuff I was talking about before about not being so transactional, long-term view, doing the right things over a long period of time. He's very big about all that sort of stuff. Um, Warren Buffett. I really like listening to Warren Buffett, even though it's not directly related to what we're doing day to day. I think his outlook is really good. Again, it's long-term, fundamental, simple stuff that he talks about. The way he approaches investing is he is investing in businesses. He's not investing in a chart. He's looking at fundamentals of businesses. Um, Listen to a lot of industry specific stuff. So I think whatever industry you're in, if you're a chiropractor or a physio or something like that, there'll be something in your industry of people who talk about business related topics for your industry. So for us, it's about agencies. So there's a lot of content that I consume around that. It's just being curious, I find. So as I said, it's less formal. I haven't done too many formal professional development courses, but it's about being curious, finding something online, going deep on it, finding an author, finding a podcaster, something like that, and just really consuming it. And I find for myself, it's about managing my energy. So I just know right now I don't have the mental energy at this point to be consuming business books on my drive
Hmm.
to do a school pickup. I just need to switch off on that, listen to a fiction book. But when I'm really curious about something, then I'll just go deep on it while I have the energy to do it.
Yep. Have you had mentors or coaches along the way?
Yeah, so we have had some consultants along the way. One in particular came from the US. It was quite an expensive process. Learnt a lot through that. We've had informal mentors as well. So just our first accountant, often just talk business with him. He's not our accountant anymore, but still friends and talk business. Anytime there's an opportunity of a successful business person that they're willing to share something with us, we hope we try to be open to that. So whether it's someone who's retiring, who's had experience in an IT business, is one that I can think of. There's another guy who my dad used to work for who ran some manufacturing businesses. So just a chance to just pick their brains about what philosophies and things of business. So again, I think it's just being curious and being open. One thing I would say to be careful of with coaches, mentors, things like that, they all have a different way of doing things, and there's no right or wrong with it, but I've found you really need to go with your gut if something doesn't feel right. If you're being told to do something that's just doesn't pass the gut test with you, I think just try to find a different way to do it. I don't like blindly following, and usually you have a good feeling if something's resonating with you or not. If it's resonating, then I think it's often just validating your own thoughts, which is great. Maybe stretching you a little, but if it's just something that feels completely unnatural, then we just try to move on and do something else that fits a bit more with our own psyches.
Yeah. Do you have a board of directors or advisors?
No, so no, it's just myself and Nathaniel. Plus, we do have a lot of meetings, as I said, with Chris, to plan, you know, whether it's annually, quarterly, or whether it's just ad hoc. If things are just either going gangbusters and we need to make a plan, or if things aren't going well and can't count the number of times we've had crisis meetings. um, but it's all good fun. Like we're all good mates, and like that's been a saving grace for all of this is that being in it with people that you enjoy the company of and that you can have a drink with and that I think it has made a massive difference for us. You're sharing the experience together and you don't feel alone in it. So you kind of look for inspiration for externally, but also just people internally who can contribute as well.
All right, Scott, we're on to our final five questions. What do you think is the hardest thing in growing a small business?
I think being pulled in different directions, it's like you're just navigating an obstacle course in the dark or juggling Rubik's cubes or something like, and then something else happens, and
I think
then
it's a knockout. Yeah.
yeah, that's
You remember that from the 80s?
right.
Yeah, that was filmed up in the Gold Coast thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, or gladiators. Yeah, oh yeah, it's a knockout was great. Um, yeah, it feels like that. You're just trying to jump on the lily pads, and then the thing just comes and hits you. Um, so I think that's it. But as I said before, I think if you're in it with someone else, whether it's a partner, whether it's employees who you really trust, whether it's your wife or husband, something like that, I think it does help a lot. So yeah, juggling, I guess I'd say is the hardest thing.
Favorite business book which has helped you the most?
The Alex Hormozy stuff is really awesome. Even his YouTube stuff, I find he's a really successful guy. He's very matter of fact, very logical. Um, so get a lot from out of him. So all the stuff he talks about in that $100 million offers book, it really gets you to think about objection handling. How can you just craft, like how much is in literally the offer that you're making to the marketplace, how much that can improve your business. So I'd really recommend that one. Um, the other one, which I think I've seen you talk about before, the effective manager tools. So that one really helped us when we went from that, say, $1 million revenue and beyond. It's a lot about structure. So structure and running people meetings, things like that. Um,
You probably wouldn't have listened to, I think it was episode 87 from memory. We had Mark Horseman on the cast. It's a friend of mine. I'll send that through to you. It was four and a bit years ago.
yeah, cool.
Yeah, managed tools, highly recommend their material, the effective and their podcast. Mm.
Yeah, and I find so I'm not sure if you come across EOS as well. It's Traction is the book. So
Yeah.
things like that, the effective manager, Traction, all that sort of stuff. I find them helpful in that they kind of just give you a bit of a recipe of how to do these things. You don't have to reinvent everything yourself, and you can always tweak it a little bit. But rather than having to start from scratch, it's like here's a format you can work with for your people meetings. Here's a format you can work with for your strategic business planning. So EOS talks a lot about that. There's some stuff in EOS which we didn't really need or use, and we did modify things, but it was at least a starting point. So a lot of those books have been good. And as I said, Gary V consumed a lot of his stuff over the years. Warren Buffett. The other one I might throw in. Um, have you watched? It's not really educational. It's more entertainment, but it shows you how not to run a business. Um, Very Small Business on the ABC. Have you seen that show?
No, I haven't.
He's an Aussie guy, Wayne Hope. You would have seen him in all the full front, all the Aussie comedy stuff. He's basically he's running. He's a shonky businessman who's running about seven different businesses. So he's got a dog wash that he's trying to franchise. He's got a bunch of others. He's got seven phones on his desk. They're all ringing. He's answering them with different
I'm gonna, I'm
names.
gonna watch that. Did you know
Yeah.
the Australian version of The Office launches?
Yeah, I've seen shorts of that. Yeah, I'm keen to watch it.
Have you seen Colin from Accounts?
No, but I've heard of it. So
Fucking hilarious. It's great. The
yeah,
guy gets a craft brewery, how he meets his partner in the end.
yeah,
Runs over the dog thanks to her, but it's a very
yeah,
funny the series on Binge, I think it is. Yeah.
yeah. Cool. I'll have to watch that. But yeah, no, Very Small Business is good. He's just a shonky businessman. It's a good one to watch. Actually, the other one I love, um, Nathan for You. Have you heard of that one? He's it's going to be hard for me to describe. You just got to watch it. But he's a Canadian guy who's graduated from business school, and he goes and helps businesses with how they can improve their marketing. And it's always something crazy. It's just like he gets a moving. He goes into a removalist company and asks him, "Okay, so what's your number one cost in running a moving company?" And he says, "Oh, well, obviously the labor, like paying the removalists." And he says, "Okay, what if we could trick people into moving for free? So what we're going to do is we're going to start a exercise club called the Movement, and they're going to be thinking of lifting boxes and stuff as part of their exercise routine." And he gets them to come in and do their course by actually moving people's houses. It's really, really funny. So I highly recommend that one as well.
A mate of mine in London, actually, when I was there 15, 16 years ago, he actually started a business. I thought it was genius and actually worked, where people would jog and deliver leaflets.
Yeah, nice. Yep. Yeah, I've thought about that too with, say, landscaping. You got people who are going to a gym, get fit, and you got landscapers who need to pay people to do labor. Come on, let's join those things.
Any great podcasts or online learning tools you use for your own professional development?
Yeah, podcasts, yeah, as I said, Gary V. Industry specific stuff, I think, is really key if you can find it. So whatever industry your listeners are in, you just go searching that out and find people that you resonate with, find people who have great guests. Even a podcast like yourself where there's different types of businesses. I think you can learn from other types of businesses as well, which is great. So
One tool you'd recommend to help grow a small business?
it's not a very glamorous response, but I'd say learn how to use a spreadsheet. um, so much stuff, just business planning, number crunching, all that sort of stuff. Just be able to whip something up quickly in a spreadsheet. I think it's worth learning, and I do see a lot of people struggle with it. It's not actually that hard, but you just got to, once you learn it, you can just use it. It's so flexible as a tool that you can use for your business.
Finally, my favorite question. What would you tell yourself on day one of starting out almost 22 years ago?
Patience, consistency, fundamentals. I'd tell myself it's not a get rich quick scheme. So, and I don't think we really treated it like that. We weren't treating it like that. But as I said, as we've gone on in business, we've learned to be a bit more long-term thinking. I don't think we've actually done anything groundbreaking in our business, but we've just done it for a long time, consistently focused on the customer service. Yeah, I think just do the fundamentals well, and also cover your weaknesses. So be aware of your weaknesses and make sure they're covered with who you surround yourself with.
Thanks so much for your time today, Scott. We could talk for a few more hours. I'm sure we'll catch up in Brisbane at Fallon's under Storybridge there for a beer, but I really appreciate your time. Congratulations to you and Nathaniel starting in 2003. The two of you growing up to 40 team members, 33 full-time equivalent, 5.6 million top line in the marketing space, particularly digital marketing. Well done to you and the team.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
We're getting some great iTunes reviews. For those listening, please pop over to your podcast app and leave us a review.